What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered with Shay. I am your host, Shay Bay, and I just want to thank you and welcome you all for coming and being here. So, I put up a poll on the first episode asking what you all wanted the next episode to be about, either relationships or sports. And majority of the people chose relationships. And so, it's going to be a three-part series because we're going to talk about dating, marriage, and then divorce. But then within those parts, there are going to be little sub parts that we're going to talk about as well. And so today we're going to be touching on dating. And so we're going to be comparing, contrasting dating from like modern dating now to like a decade ago or longer when our parents, grandparents, and stuff were dating, and kind of compare and contrast the two to see which decade or which time had the hardest with dating. And so of course, I'm a millennial. I was born in 1990. My parents, I would say, were like the boomers, like the end of the boomer generation. And so we have more technology nowadays than parents and grandparents. Of course, back in the day, if you wanted to meet somebody, you had to either met them in school or out somewhere at the club, somewhere. Well, now we tend to meet people more on the internet, on these dating apps. And so I did some research on asking Google about basically comparing contrasting, is dating harder or easier now than it was a decade ago? And so, according to Google, it says that people believe that dating now in this modern time is harder back than it was a decade or so ago. And so, the reason why the challenges that make it so harder now than back in the day is because, again, technology, so dating apps, technology, also the shifting of social norms and expectations. Also, it brought about traditional dating and courting back in the day versus now. And so let's kind of touch on traditional courting. And so according to this, it says that back in the day, with traditional courting, dating, they had clear expectations. So in the past, say courtship often had more defined stages and societal expectations with a clear path towards marriage. So, back then it was steps. So you courted. Of course, the man would take the woman out on the dates. A lot of the times, the man would be the one to pay. The man would go to the parents of said woman and said, "Hey, I want to date your daughter. I want to be with your daughter." It was steps. You like basically, as the man, you had to go to the head of the home, which was the father, the male figure of the head of the home, and ask them for the daughter's hand, to date or ask the permission to date. And it was steps. It was respect there. Also, relationships back then blossomed with established social circles. So, yet family, community, church. So, back in the day, family was everything. Community was everything, especially in the Black community. I can speak from that perspective. Close. You had grandma, auntie, uncle right around the corner. Everybody went to church together. Everybody knew everybody. You couldn't get away with nothing because everybody knew everybody. And so, uh, basically, you had a sense of, how can I say, support around you when it came to those, because everybody knew everybody. So of course it was like, hey, you came correct when it came to dating this person. You didn't just walk up and say, like, I'm going to be with you. You had to go to the father or go to the parents. Also, people had a smaller pool of partners to choose from. Also, you had more of one-on-one interactions because, again, they didn't have technology, so you had to sit and talk face to face. You had to be in each other's presence and be around each other to learn each other. You couldn't just, you know, I'm gonna FaceTime you or I'm gonna just talk to you through text. You either, talk to on the phone, but mostly it was face to face interactions. And then your family was involved. So a lot of times, like you see this in other cultures where you have the parents that kind of pick the spouse or pick the person for their child. So, the parents may arrange marriages or arrangement where the parents pick the partner, pick the male for their daughter that they best thought would best suit their daughter. And a lot of times in those cultures, the person really didn't have much time to learn about them. They just got married and then you kind of grew to love that person. So back in the day, like you had families that kind of had a lot of say so and input on who their daughters dated or who their daughters married. So, but compared to now, so now it's like family is still there, but it's not as prevalent in some decision making when it comes to partnership as in back in the day. And so a man now doesn't have to go directly to the parents if they want to date their child or be with their daughter. They kind of just, hey, go to the daughter directly. And now with technology, with these dating apps, it makes it a little bit easier, but also harder because while apps offer a wider pool of potential partners, the vast number of options can lead to indecisiveness or indecision, superficial judgments based on profiles, and a constant feeling that there might be someone better out there making commitment harder. So I'm gonna touch on that. People, the internet is not a real place. Okay. People tend to put their best foot forward on the internet, right? Because you're hiding behind this profile or this computer screen or this phone screen, So it's like, hey, I could pretend to be so and so. I could put up these AI generated pictures. I can, have ChatGPT or whoever make these profiles for me and make me stand out and look good. When really, I don't want people to know the real me. And so when you meet these people on these dating apps, and you either match or whatever, initially you don't know, you're just reading that person's profile, but who's to say that's that real person? And then sometimes you try to schedule a date and you get to the date and you're like, oh, this is not who I thought at all was who I was talking to. This is not the person I thought at all. And so a lot of catfishing. That's why the show Catfish became so popular, because people were using the internet and these apps to make up this facade or this fake persona to make themselves more attractive and more appealing. And so also with these apps, I do agree, it you have all these options, all these different options. You may match up with 5 or 6 different people, but no telling how many people that those people have matched up with. And so you're talking for a while, everything's going good, and all of a sudden they ghost you. And you're like, okay, what happened? The conversation was flowing, the vibe was there. What happened? And because you have all these plethora of people to choose from, these people feel like, well, yeah, this person's cool and I'm vibing with them, but there's somebody always out there better for me. And so we tend to just go with whoever we feel is quote unquote the better option. And it just sucks because you can literally, I was on the apps at one point, you literally get exhausted from meeting new people every day. And then you start a conversation, you spark, and you're like, oh man, this is going great. Maybe I found the person I want to date. And all of a sudden they just ghost you. And you're like, wait, everything was so good. What happened? And that's because society now is like, society now is building up this norm of like, you can always find somebody better. Why settle? There's always somebody better, which is true. You should never settle. But if you keep jumping from person to person to person, are you really taking the time to really get to know and figure out what you really want in a person? And then it's easy for people, again, like I said, to catfish or misrepresent who they really are because they're putting their best foot forward, quote unquote, on paper. On paper, also, with these, with AI now, you can use all this stuff to generate you to sound like the Prince Charming or like, the queen of all this just awesome, perfect person, and you're really not. And then also because online, I live in Georgia, I could be in Georgia and I could meet somebody in Alabama, Florida, and have this quote unquote relationship with them, and I never even see them in person. It's all through the phone. It's all through, technology. And so it's like, when I do finally get to meet this person, it's like, it's awkward because I'm really meeting a stranger because you don't know who you're talking to behind these profiles and behind these, different personas. You don't know who that person really is. So catch the show Catfish brought all that to the light of how modern dating really is. It's tough. You can't just walk into the mall. People don't really go to malls like that. But you can't really walk into the mall and just bump into somebody and meet them. And then, you may exchange numbers, back in the day because they didn't have, they had landlines, but you still met them or talked to them more, hung out with them in person versus now. It's kind of harder to do that. And then like safety concerns, like, for women, it's, men too, but women especially, you don't know who you're meeting online, who are on these apps. And you have so many predators, so many evil, crazy people on these apps, and then you're going to on this date thinking that you're meeting this awesome person you've been talking to and get snatched up. Men and women, it can happen to both, but speaking from a woman's perspective, it's like, dang, it's scary out here. So it's hard. I'm not saying that wasn't happening back then, but I feel more known now because of technology. It's more known that people, are getting, snatched up or getting, abused, harassed, all this other stuff. And so also I feel like relationships, it's like you have more acceptable quote unquote society form of relationships. What makes it difficult? Like it's no more just monogamy, like a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman and a man and a man. Now you have polyamorous. So you have like one person dating two or three other people. And then you people that live together, you live together, dating, you move in together, live together. You have those who are dating and live apart. And so it can make it hard because especially I don't know how people do these. For anybody out there who's in a poly relationship, please tune in and please leave a comment and tell me your experience with that, because me personally, I don't see how people can do that because I'm a jealous person. And so you're with one person, but they're with two or three other people. And I don't see how jealousy is not a thing. I don't see how you can make it work with multiple people with multiple personalities trying to come together and build something and have this thing. So, hey, for all those who are out there who are poly or believe in poly, please chime in and give your girls some insight as to what the expectations are, because I truly don't know. But it's like, yeah, man, it's hard out here. It really is. Like my parents have been married 30, let's see, they've been married 36, 37 years this year. And they met growing up. My dad's from Ohio, my mom's from Georgia, but my dad's parents were from Georgia. So they would come down in the summers and visit their family. And that's how my dad met my mom. And, they were children, they were young then. But back in the day, that's how you met people. Like you met people, through church, just growing up together. And now, or school, going to school together. And now it's like, the technology has made the world feel like it's in the palm of your hands. Like you can literally talk to somebody on the other side of the world and not have to leave the comforts of your home. And it's so crazy to think that you can do that. When back then, 30 years ago, that was kind of hard to do when internet stuff was really becoming a thing. It was really hard for people to really, talk to someone on the other side of the world. And now you can do it like that. So it's just, in my opinion, I feel like dating nowadays is harder. Again, because of technology factor, because you have so many options, and society is making it seem like, hey, don't settle. All these options, YOLO, live your best life. Like you don't have to sit here and settle for one person. You can have your pick of anybody, which is cool. And I feel like my advice would be anybody out there single looking to, either get married or something like that. It's like, take your time to get to know you and love you and figure out what you want out of somebody. And then try to narrow your choices from that and try to stick to your standards. No one's perfect. Everybody has their flaws, everybody has their issues, true. But you have to decide what you're willing to deal with and what you're not. And nothing wrong with having options, but don't have too many options, because that's when indecisiveness comes in. That's where you can get hurt. That's where getting, I guess, played can come in. If you try to entertain so many people at one time, it's kind of hard to, separate. So just saying, if you want to be out there and be a player, that's all well and good for you. But if you're really serious and intentional about being in a healthy relationship that will lead to potentially marriage or something like that, then I would say sit down, look within yourself and figure out the attributes and the standards about yourself that you have for yourself. and then use those and turn around and try to find somebody that's similar to the standards that you have for yourself and then the standards that you have for that person and try to stick to that and have fun, but yeah, I really do agree that dating nowadays is extremely difficult. Not extremely difficult, it has its challenges. I'm pretty sure back in the day they had their challenges too. Um, having your parents, a community kind of having a say so in who you're with versus now. I feel like we're kind of straying away from that. People don't want their parents in their business. People don't want other people in their business telling them who they can and cannot be with. But hey, maybe on one hand, sometimes parents do know best, and sometimes they've been they've been already where we're going to, and they can see things that we can't because we're so blinded by love and lust and all this other stuff. It's hard to see things and pick up on things. So sometimes it's not a bad thing to reach out to your parents or your family and ask their opinion on somebody because they can see things that we don't. But yeah, I mean, I don't see it getting easier as far as dating. I don't see it getting any easier. More challenging as technology gets more and more advanced. It's going to be more and more challenging. But I just say, hey, just enjoy the ride wherever you are, whether you're actively dating, whether you're taking a break from dating, frustrated with dating. Hey, just do you in your time. Like, just take your time. There's no rush. Don't let anybody make you feel like there's a rush on time to be with somebody. It's like, hey, enjoy the ride, get to know people, form the relationships, and decide for yourself if that's what you truly want and that's who you truly want to be with. So, that being said, that is my episode for today. Next, we're going to talk about, in the next part of our series, we're going to talk about dating somebody with children. Because, I mean, the older that we get, it's very rare to find somebody who doesn't at least have one child. So we're going to talk about how it is to date with a child, whether you're a single mother or a single father, you have one child or you have 5 children. It's like the challenges of dating with children. So, like I said, today we talked about, let's recap. We talked about relationships. We talked about, relationships now. Is it easier or harder dating now versus 20 some odd years ago? And in my opinion, I feel like it's harder to date now than it was back in the day, only because technology has made stuff easier, but also more challenging because now we have more and more options to choose from. And people will use these apps and use these platforms to catfish or to put up fake personas to make people believe that they're these great people, like this, that, and the third, when really they're not. And people hide behind these things to, so people don't. And then just my advice: take your time, know what you want, stick to that. Realize nobody is perfect, that people are going to have their flaws, and you have to pick and choose what you're willing to deal with and what you're willing to put up with. But don't give up. If you're, like I said, actively dating, don't give up. You will find somebody. Take your time, enjoy the ride where you're going, enjoy it, and enjoy getting to know you in the process. Do not lose yourself in the process. So, like I said, like, share, subscribe. I really appreciate the love that I got from the pilot episode. Again, I got a little bit more technology and I got a ring light now. So things are starting to move up. So your girl is slowly getting there. And I appreciate every last one of y'all that like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you so much for the support. I really do appreciate it, and have a great and awesome day. Bye.